The ability to see reality is closely linked to the second building block of resilience, the propensity to make meaning of terrible times. We all know people who, under duress, throw up their hands and cry, "How can this be happening to me?" Such people see themselves as victims, and living through hardship carries no lessons for them. But resilient people devise constructs about their suffering to create some sort of meaning for themselves and others. This dynamic of meaning-making is, most researchers agree, the way resilient people build bridges from present-day hardships to a fuller, better constructed future. Those bridges make the present manageable, for lack of a better word, removing the sense that the present is overwhelming. This concept was beautifully articulated by Viktor E. Frankl, an Austrian psychiatrist and Auschwitz survivor. In the midst of staggering suffering, Frankl invented meaning therapy, a humanistic therapy technique that helps individuals make the kinds of decisions that will create significance in their lives. In his book, Man's Search for Meaning, Frankl described the pivotal moment in the camp when he developed meaning therapy. He was on his way to work one day, worrying whether he should trade his last cigarette for a bowl of soup. He wondered how he was going to work with a new foreman, whom he knew to be particularly sadistic. Suddenly, he was disgusted by just how trivial and meaningless his life had become. He realized that to survive, he had to find some purpose. Frankl did so by imagining himself giving a lecture after the war on the psychology of the concentration camp to help outsiders understand what he had been through. Although he wasn't sure he would survive, Frankl created some concrete goals for himself. In doing so, he succeeded in rising above the sufferings of the moment. As he put it in his book, "We must never forget that we may also find meaning in life, even when confronted with a hopeless situation, when facing a fate that cannot be changed." Frankl's theory underlies most resilience coaching in business. Indeed, I was struck by how often business people referred to his work. Resilience training, what we call hardiness, is a way for us to help people construct meaning in their everyday lives, explained Salvatore R. Maddi, a University of California Irvine psychology professor and the director of the Hardiness Institute in Newport Beach, California. When people realize the power of resilience training, they often say, "Doc, is this what psychotherapy is?" But psychotherapy is for people whose lives have fallen apart badly and need repair. We see our work as showing people life skills and attitudes. Maybe those things should be taught at home. Maybe they should be taught in schools, but they're not. So we end up doing it in business. Yet the challenge confronting resilience trainers is often more difficult than we might imagine. Meaning can be elusive, and just because you found it once doesn't mean you'll keep it or find it again. Consider Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who survived the war against the Nazis, imprisonment in the Gulag, and cancer. Yet when he moved to a farm in peaceful, safe Vermont, he could not cope with the infantile West. He was unable to discern any real meaning in what he felt to be his destructive and irresponsible freedom of the West. Upset by his critics, he withdrew into his farmhouse, behind a locked fence, seldom to be seen in public. In 1994, a bitter man, Solzhenitsyn moved back to Russia. Since finding meaning in one's environment is such an important aspect of resilience, it should come as no surprise that most successful organizations and people possess strong value systems. Strong values infuse an environment with meaning because they offer ways to interpret and shape events. While it's popular these days to ridicule values, it's surely no coincidence that the most resilient organization in the world has been the Catholic Church, which has survived wars, corruptions, and schism for more than 2,000 years, thanks largely to its immutable set of values. Businesses that survive also have their creeds, which give them purposes beyond just making money. Strikingly, many companies describe their value systems in religious terms. Pharmaceutical giant Johnson & Johnson, for instance, calls its value system, set out in a document given to every new employee at orientation, the Credo. Parcel company UPS talks constantly about its noble purpose. Value systems at resilient companies change very little over the years and are used as scaffolding in times of trouble. UPS chairman and CEO Mike Eskew believes that the noble purpose helped the company to rally after the agonizing strike in 1997. Says Eskew, "It was a hugely difficult time, like a family feud. Everyone had close friends on both sides of the fence, and it was tough for us to pick sides. But what saved us was our noble purpose. Whatever side people were on, they all shared a common set of values. Those values are core to us and never change. They frame most of our important decisions. Our strategy and our mission may change, but our values never do." The religious connotation of words like credos, values, and noble purpose, however, should not be confused with the actual content of the values. Companies can hold ethically questionable values and still be very resilient. Consider Philip Morris, which has demonstrated impressive resilience in the face of increasing unpopularity. As Jim Collins points out, Philip Morris has very strong values, although we might not agree with them. For instance, the value of adult choice. But there's no doubt that Philip Morris executives believe strongly in its values, and the strength of their beliefs sets the company apart from most of the other tobacco companies. In this context, it is worth noting that resilience is neither ethically good nor bad. It is merely this skill and the capacity to be robust under conditions of enormous stress and change. As Viktor Frankl wrote, on the average, only those prisoners could keep alive who, after years of trekking from camp to camp, had lost all scruples in their fight for existence. They were prepared to use every means, honest and otherwise, even brutal, in order to save themselves. We who have come back, we know, the best of us did not return. Values, positive or negative, are actually more important for organizational resilience than having resilient people on the payroll. If resilient employees are all interpreting reality in different ways, their decisions and actions may well conflict, calling into doubt the survival of their organization. And as the weakness of an organization becomes apparent, highly resilient individuals are more likely to jettison the organization than to imperil their own survival.